this time on Camp Outside, we have a brand new GMRS radio to review. We're going to review the TalkPod A36 Plus GMRS radio. Check it out. Hey guys, I'm Kevin with Camp Outside, your inside source for all things outside. I'm really excited to do this video. If you have been following my channel a little bit, I've gotten into outdoor communications a little bit, specifically looking at GMRS and MURS radios. We're also going to venture into ham radio at some point in time, but I was just sent a TalkPod A36 Plus GMRS radio. I haven't even opened the box yet. And they sent this to me, guys, asking me to do a review. So I just want to get that out of the way. They did send it to me. I did not buy it. But I'm going to give you my open and honest opinion on this radio. Let's dive into the box and take a look. Okay, so I don't do a whole lot of unboxing, so I don't have all the top-down cameras and stuff. I'm just going to hold it up in the air and open the box, see what's in it. So I like how the box is relatively small. So the first thing we have is an owner's manual. We'll take a look at that in a minute. And then comes with a programming cable. That's nice. I don't know whether this radio is programmable with Chirp, which is how I program most of my radios, or if it has its own proprietary software. We'll find that out. Let's see, what else we got in here? We have a charging cradle with non-detachable power cord. So we got that. The amazing wrist strap, very important if you are going to send a radio with small kids, put that on their wrist so the radio comes back when they do. We have a USB-A to USB-C charging cable. So this radio is USB-C chargeable. I like that. What else we got in here? We have an antenna. We have a battery, which we'll open up in a minute. Belt clip. A standard charging brick for your USB-A to USB-C cable, in case you don't want to use the drop-in charger. And the radio body itself. Now I got the green one. They asked me what color I wanted. I said, well, let's go with green because you all have seen what black radios look like. And I like things in bright colors when I'm using them outdoors, especially when I'm camping or hiking or that kind of thing. That way, if I ever drop it on the trail or I set it down, I see it and can find it really easily if I leave it somewhere and have to backtrack for it. It's pretty easy to see this color, so I really like that. And of course, one of my favorite parts of purchasing electronics, or even better, getting them in the mail for free, is peeling off that little sticker. Oh, just the tab came off. Wow, that's like a blooper. I'm gonna have to figure out how to get that off of there. Here it comes. Oh yeah. All right, let's get this thing put together and see what it does. So I'm going to take the battery out, and I just want to read the specs on it. So it says lithium-ion battery with USB, capacity 1500 milliamps, 7.4 volts. Let's see if I can get that. So that'll just, let's see, I got to figure out how this goes. Yep, just snaps in. All right, and then the antenna, your standard rubber duck style antenna, and it says FM 136 to 174 megahertz and 400 to 470 megahertz, so it's a dual band antenna. Now that really only matters for transmit, guys. Any antenna will receive, so it doesn't really matter. This radio supposedly only transmits on GMRS channels, but it receives a whole bunch of frequencies, and so we'll get into that. But what you want is you want an antenna that's resonant on the frequencies you want to transmit on. Doesn't necessarily matter if it's resonant on the frequencies you want to receive. Almost any antenna will receive almost any frequency, although it does better the closer the length. But in terms of transmit, you definitely want an antenna that's resonant on the frequencies you intend to transmit on. In this case, GMRS frequencies are 462 to 467 megahertz, so this antenna is resonant on those frequencies. So you're good to go there. Add the hand strap here, because I always like to do that. Okay, so I got a hand strap on there. And then the belt clip, I think, just snaps in, which is nice. So we'll go ahead and drop that in. Actually, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the battery back off for the belt clip. Yep, just snaps in. Battery back on. All right, let's turn this thing on and see if it has any charge to it.
Channel mode.
All right, so the radio did turn on. I got to figure out what it's all programmed to, but all in all, it's not that heavy of a radio. It does have a little bit of weight to it. The plastic feels pretty good. I like the size. The size of the radio is nice. It is a SMA female antenna. So if you are using external antennas or aftermarket antennas, you can certainly do that. One of the things that I noticed right off the bat is on a lot of these GMRS radios and stuff, they have a flashlight on the top. TalkPod didn't put a flashlight on theirs, which is just fine. I never used it anyway. It's got its PTT button on the side, which is nice. It's got the programming cable on this side, as well as a speaker mic can be plugged in there. So yeah, all in all, really nice. Let me mess with it a little bit and I'll come back and show you some features. Okay guys, so I am back after spending a little bit of time with the TalkPod A36 Plus. I've spent the last day and a half kind of messing with it, getting a feeling for it. And quite honestly guys, there are a lot of really confusing things about this radio. So I decided to go and, when in doubt, read the manual, right? Well, guys, I hate to say it, but this manual is next to worthless. I love the first page. Let me just read the first page to you. It says, "Thanks for your favor in our product. This manual is helpful for you to quickly know how to use the product. This manual is applicable to the following product: multi-band portable transceiver." So my problem with the manual is that it does tell you, you know, some of the features and the parts and stuff, and it does tell you, you know, which buttons are what and how to put the battery in and that kind of thing. But it gives no guidance at all on any of the menus. So I have to guess. Like, I don't know how to program anything. Now, I've used a lot of handheld radios, guys. I'm a ham radio operator. I've been a ham radio operator since 1995. My call sign is KB8WPD. And I've had my GMRS license now for, I'm guessing, about a year. And my call sign there is WRQG272. So I've been using handhelds for a long time, and I've been dealing with different menu systems for a long time. But whenever I'm operating a new menu system, I really kind of want a manual to kind of go over stuff. It's really hard to figure out this radio. So when I turned it on, at first I thought, oh, hey, this is really cool. And here's why I thought that. The first channels were labeled FRS. And if you guys don't know what FRS is the Family Radio Service, and that's the radios that you get from Cabela's or Bass Pro Shops or Walmart, where it's typically two of them in a little pack and they're really small, and you can use them on the Family Radio Service. That's a great little radio service. It doesn't require a license to operate, and you know, you have I forget how many channels are in that. But anyway, the radio was programmed for the FRS channels. And then as you kept scrolling, it got into the GMRS channels, which is the General Mobile Radio Service, which is, you know, what this radio is designed for, at least supposedly. And so that radio service, as I've said in my other GMRS video, is you have to have a license to operate a GMRS radio, and you know, one license can cover the operation of radios for your entire family, which is why I like GMRS. I can, when I'm camping with my family, I can hand them radios and we can all operate off the same license. But FRS and GMRS share a lot of the same frequencies, a lot of the same channels. So to have the radio programmed in with the same channels twice, I thought was, you know, a little strange. But hey, maybe you don't know. Maybe, you know, maybe you have an FRS radio, but you have no idea what the channels are. And so you want this radio to talk to that radio. And so sure, you can pick an FRS channel. The problem with it is that it's got privacy tones set up. So when you're transmitting, you know, that FRS radio is going to hear you transmit, but when they transmit back to you, unless they are transmitting the same privacy tone that this radio is set to, you're not going to hear them. Now, if you buy two of these radios and they're set the same way and you turn them on and you're talking back and forth, you would hear each other just fine, and you would think that, you know, there's nothing wrong until someone with a different brand radio jumps on the same channel and you can't hear them, and you wouldn't know why unless you were familiar with the ins and outs of privacy tones and all that stuff. The other thing is that, you know, the radio is programmed to, on FRS channels, high power. So on FRS, you're limited to like a half watt of power on the channels. And so these radios, a lot less power, non-detachable antenna. So you can't use this radio as an FRS radio because it transmits too high of a power and it has a detachable antenna. So this is not an FRS radio. If you want to use this radio to talk to your friends on FRS, you still need a GMRS license to operate. That's how this works. So why they would program in FRS frequencies and then also have them be high power and stuff like that, I don't really get it, because this isn't an FRS radio. The same thing is true for all the GMRS channels. All the GMRS channels had a privacy tone programmed in. So if I picked this up, just turned it on, tuned it to any GMRS channel, and I was trying to talk to any of my other GMRS radios that I have, this could talk to them, but unless those radios have that privacy tone programmed in, this would not hear it. Why would TalkPod send this radio out programmed from the factory with a privacy tone selected for each channel? Didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Also, I think when I got it, there were some channels that were programmed in as narrow versus wide, and I thought that was strange. Although I can't confirm that because as I was messing with the menus, I accidentally reset the radio and wiped out the programming that was in the radio to begin with. So now I have basically a blank radio that has no channels programmed in, which is fine, by the way, because I was going to reprogram everything anyway. I have a whole bunch of handhelds and I'm going to program them all the same way. So if you were going to buy this radio and use it right out of the box without connecting it to a computer to program it, you would have to go into every single one of those channels and delete out those privacy tones if you had any intention of talking to other brand radios on GMRS or FRS. I don't get it, guys. I don't understand why TalkPod would program it that way. I think that's foolish. I think TalkPod needs to ship this radio with no privacy tones programmed into their radios. I don't mind the FRS and the GMRS programmed in separately because, you know, not everybody is a hardcore radio nerd and totally understands it, and that's fine. If you're going to operate this radio, you need a GMRS license. But if all your buddies have FRS radios and you have your GMRS license and you want to talk to their FRS radios, that's no problem. That's perfectly legal. So you don't have to necessarily know a whole lot about it to operate it. But why TalkPod would do that is beyond me. So something else that I want to cover is that the screen goes dark on the radio when you're not using it. So if it's on, see there's on, but the screen will turn off. There's no indication that this radio is powered on at all when the screen goes off. So I have a problem with setting this radio down and leaving it on. And so, yep, see the screen just went off. So this radio is still on and listening to those frequencies that it's programmed into right now. There's no indication that this radio is on whatsoever. So I'll forget, I'll set it down, I'll leave it on my desk or whatever, I'll walk away and I'll come back and the radio will be either dead or low on power. So you've got to remember to turn the thing off when you're not using it, otherwise you're going to constantly have dead batteries. I like the older style of radios where the display is on all the time. Yeah, it's not a multicolor display and it's not black and it's like the old liquid crystal display, watch face type displays. But they were always on and you could always tell whether or not they were on. I have a couple of these radios now with the fancy screens, and while it's nice, I hate that it turns off. And so if I go into the programming menu and I turn those screens on all the time, they just eat batteries. So I know that's something. I'm more old school, I guess, when it comes to radios. I don't need all the fancy colors and the big displays and all that stuff. But that's just something to keep in mind. If you set this radio down and you plan to walk away from it, make sure you turn it off. You're going to come back with a dead battery. On the plus side, the first test I did was I used the drop-in charger, and it charged it up in just a couple hours time. So it was a pretty fast charge. So I was happy with that, and it's on a full charge now. And so that my next step is to program this thing using Chirp. So Chirp is a radio programming software that's free to download. One of the things that I like about using Chirp, even though it's freeware, is that it's safe. Everybody in the radio world uses Chirp to program their radios if their radio is compatible with Chirp. And so you don't have to download the company's proprietary software to program the radio with who knows what kind of extra stuff is in that software. You can go ahead and download Chirp, which is safe, and then use Chirp to program your radio. One of the things I really like about Chirp is I have a number of different radios from a number of different brands, and I can copy programs from one radio to the other, at least my frequency lists, and so that all my radios are programmed the same, so that channel 1 on this radio will be the same as channel 1 on every other GMRS radio I own, regardless of brand. So I really, really like Chirp. They did send a programming cable with this radio. You have to download a driver to run that programming cable. Again, I don't trust downloads from a lot of companies, guys. It might be fine, but I already have a programming cable that fits this connector, so I'm going to use my programming cable. So I'm not going to test the programming cable that comes with this radio. Assume that it works. Assume that you can download the driver just fine. Just beware what you're downloading. I have no expertise on whether or not the programming software, the proprietary programming software, or the programming cable and the drivers are free of spyware, malware, that kind of thing or not. I'm hoping that they would. I'm hoping that any company that's putting out stuff like this is providing you good software, but I just don't know, and you can't be too careful these days. So again, I'm going to use Chirp, and I'm going to use the programming cable I already own. I'm really interested to see how it does once I program it. Now, another thing I will say, guys, is that there is a way, at least from what I found on the internet, of making this ham radio capable as well as GMRS. So I tried punching in a ham radio frequency and hitting the PTT, and it would not transmit. And that is consistent with What I read online for this radio is that the frequencies are locked to GMRS for the US-based radios, the radios that are shipped to the United States. Guys, if you own a GMRS radio, the requirements of the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, is that that radio can only transmit on GMRS channels. It's not allowed to transmit on non-GMRS channels. So there are other channels that are usually accessible to GMRS radios, especially on the receive side. You can receive all kinds of things with radios like this. You can receive the 2-meter ham radio band, the 70 centimeter ham radio band, the Marine VHF band, MERS, the multi-user radio service, GMRS, which this one obviously transmits on. So there's a whole bunch of different things that you can receive with these radios, the NOAA Weather Service frequencies, but you can't transmit on those. I've heard that there are ways to unlock this radio from its GMRS settings so that you can transmit on the amateur bands. Guys, that is not allowed from the FCC, but, well, I should say, it's not that you can't transmit on ham bands once you do that, but what you can't do is you can't transmit anymore on GMRS because you have violated the requirements of the radio. Now, should you use ham radios on GMRS and GMRS radios on the ham bands? That is a larger debate among the community, where some people don't really mind the rules regarding type acceptance for radios and for the services that they operate on. Other people are sticklers for the rules and think that you should always only operate the radio that's licensed for the service that you want to use. I am not going to say what I do. You can probably guess. But what I would say with this is the best reason to not unlock it for ham radio frequencies, or even if you do unlock it, not use it on ham radio frequencies, is that there are a bunch of ham radio guys on YouTube who've done some testing on this radio, and it seems like the filtering, especially on 2 meters, is really, really bad for this radio, meaning that not only when you transmit on the frequency you're on, you're also transmitting on the harmonics of the frequencies. And Smoking Ape has a great video on this. If you want to go check out his channel, it's called The Smoking Ape. He did some tests for this to show how it transmits not only on the frequency it's programmed in for, but on the first harmonic, the second harmonic, the third harmonic, and even the fourth and fifth harmonics of those frequencies to a standard or a level that makes this radio non-compliant with the rules of the FCC. Why is that an issue? Well, it's an issue because when you are transmitting out of band, and you are when you're transmitting on those harmonics, you could be interfering with crucial communications somewhere else. If the frequency you're transmitting on, if one of the harmonics happens to be police or fire or emergency services radio frequencies, you have the potential, not that you're guaranteed to, but you have the potential to interfere with very, very important emergency communications. And I got to tell you, if my house is burning down and anybody is talking on a radio and they're interfering with police and fire as they're trying to make it to my residence, I'm going to be really ticked off. So when radios don't pass the test on whether or not they're transmitting out of bound or out of band, or whether they're too high on the harmonics or not being filtered properly, I don't use them, because I just don't think that that's a good radio practice, no matter what you're licensed for, whether you're a GMRS user or a ham radio operator. So I would say that this did not pass the test on 2 meters. Now, according to Smoking Ape's video, and I haven't tested it myself, I don't have the equipment to test that stuff, but according to Smoking Ape's video, it looked like it performed just fine on 70 centimeters, that the filtering was fine, and so it wasn't transmitting out of band on its harmonics in the 70 centimeter band, which is very close to GMRS. So I intend to use this on GMRS frequencies only for transmitting, and so I think I'm going to be safe there. So I'm not worried about using it for GMRS, but I certainly am not going to unlock it and use it for 2 meters. That said, this radio has some really cool features in that Not only is it a GMRS radio where you can transmit on GMRS, but you can monitor a bunch of different radio frequencies. So it receives 76 to 108 megahertz FM broadcast radio. So that is your radio station. So if you want to listen to your favorite country or rock music station on this thing, or whatever it is you listen to, talk radio, you can program in those frequencies and listen to FM radio. After that, it listens from 108 to 136 megahertz AM for the Airband. You can listen to the aircraft flying overhead with this radio. That is really cool, and that's one of the things that I'm most excited about. Is I don't have any radios that do Airband receive, and I love to go to air shows, so you can bet this thing is going to be going to air shows with me. Now again, you can't transmit, you can't talk on that frequency, but you can listen, so that's really cool. And then let's see, the next one is it's going to listen from 136 to 180 FM, 136 to 180 megahertz FM, VHF. So that's your ham radio band from 144 to 148 megahertz. That's marine VHF, so you can listen to boat traffic if you're near water. You can listen to NOAA weather radio. You can listen to the multi-user radio service, and then there's some other usage in there as well. It listens from 200 to 260 megahertz FM. In that is the 1.25 meter ham band from 222 to 225 megahertz. So you can listen to that. It receives 350 to 400 megahertz FM. And then it also listens to 400 megahertz to 520 megahertz FM. And in that is your 70 centimeter band for ham radio as well as GMRS. So it has a wide range of frequencies it can receive. And you can program in those frequencies as channels in your radio and then set it up to scan all those frequencies so that you can scan different things that you're interested in listening to. So from that perspective, I am super excited about the TalkPod, and it's definitely going to have a place in my radio arsenal, especially for that Airband receive. A couple other features, it is IP54 rated, so that gives you a little bit of water and dust protection, but not a lot. You definitely can't submerge this radio. But that's the rating. I would say it feels good in the hand. I like it. It's not too big. It's not too small. I like the plastic. I like the color, like I said, so I don't lose it when I'm in the woods. All in all, I like the radio for what it is. I like the radio for a GMRS radio. Once I get it programmed properly, I'm going to like it. But again, I don't know why TalkPod programmed it the way they did. I'm going to go program it up with Chirp, and then let's do an audio test so you can see what it sounds like on receive.
0.94 inches above the normal amount of 9.03 inches for August. The total precipitation for the season since June 1st now stands at 17.01 inches, which is 7.14 inches below normal.
So that should have given you a good idea as to the audio quality. I really like the speaker. I think it sounds pretty good. So all in all, guys, I'm pretty happy with the TalkPod A36 Plus. And I know this has been a really long video. I've been trying to cover a lot of ground on this radio. So if you've made it this far, thanks for watching. Some final thoughts. When I did program it with Chirp, it did unlock the radio, which basically made it illegal for use on GMRS frequencies. That is, if you follow the rules of if the radio can transmit on any other frequency besides GMRS, it's no longer legal for GMRS. I'm just going to come out and say it, guys. I don't really care about type acceptance for radios. If I am licensed for a service and I'm using the proper frequency and I'm transmitting the proper power level and I am following good radio etiquette, I don't really care about type acceptance. I'm just going to say that. It's totally up to you. If type acceptance is something that's really important to you and Chirp unlocks your radio, well then you have a problem. I don't know why it did that. I am not a radio programming expert, guys. I'm not a software expert. I'm just a guy who loves to go outside and use radios. So, my review is definitely more geared towards the people that want to buy something and use it while they're camping, hiking, or fishing, not necessarily because they're, super radio nerds. Although I love super radio nerds. You guys are awesome. I learn a lot from you. So, no disrespect there. But all in all, guys, the thing that puts this radio over the top for me is the Airband receive. If you want a radio that listens to Airband, and I do, because like I said, I love going to air shows, and being able to listen to Airband is really cool. So this radio is going to go with me everywhere I go. It's definitely going to have a place either in the cargo camper or in the Kemp bus, so that I have a radio like that with me. And then, like I said before, I plan to use this on GMRS. I plan to use this only on GMRS channels where I know I am not transmitting at high levels on the harmonics. I really don't want to transmit out of band or interfere with other radio communications. My encouragement to TalkPod would be, if you sell a ham radio version of this, you really need to get those harmonics in check. You really need to put the proper filtering in for this radio to perform on 2 meters if you're going to sell a ham radio version of this radio. This radio, like I said, was shipped to me as a GMRS radio, and as it said, it was locked on GMRS channels before I accidentally deprogrammed the radio and then programmed it with chirp. So I like the radio for that. I think it looks good. It's fun to use. So all in all, I like the TalkPod, but I want to hear what you guys think. Drop something in the comments below if you have used the TalkPod A36 Plus. Tell me what you think of it. Tell me what you think about using it as a ham radio. Tell me what you think in general. I would love to hear your thoughts on the TalkPod A36 Plus. As for me, I am definitely going to be using it, especially at those air shows. So guys, I'm Kevin with Kemp Outside, your inside source for all things outside. We exist to help moms and dads take their kids camping, hiking, fishing, learn about nature, and develop a conservation ethic. We want to help you get you and your kids outside. One of the things that's really important, especially if you're camping and hiking and fishing in places that don't have good cell phone signal, is that you have a proper way to communicate, not only with your group, your family, your friends, whoever you're with, but also with others in case of emergency. And so I highly recommend you look at some kind of radio service for your family if you're getting outdoors. You can start with FRS, the Family Radio Service, which is no license required and relatively inexpensive radios. You can go ahead and get a GMRS license that covers your whole family, where you can operate radios like this. Or you can go ahead and look into getting licensed as a ham radio operator, which is a whole lot of fun and brings a whole new set of things that you can do while outside if you're into radio communications and that kind of stuff. So if you're looking for a radio and you want Airband receive and you're looking for GMRS or FRS use, although if you're going to operate this radio, you need to have a GMRS license. But if you're looking for a GMRS radio with Airband receive, I like the TalkPod A36 Plus. Guys, thanks for watching Kemp Outside. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, that little bell icon that notifies you when we release new videos, and that thumbs up. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.